a solenidade, por favor. Damos início à sessão solene de posse de Sua Excelência, o senhor ministro Antônio Herman Benjamin, e de Sua Excelência, o senhor ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão, nos cargos, respectivamente, de presidente e vice-presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça e do Conselho da Justiça Federal. Nós agradecemos a todos os presentes, bem como os que acompanham a solenidade por meio do canal do STJ no YouTube, também pela plataforma Zoom. Nós anunciamos nesse momento, por favor, a entrada das autoridades que compõem a mesa de honra e das senhoras ministras e dos senhores ministros integrantes dessa corte.
Agora ele vai anunciar e agora a senhora, ele vai passar a palavra para a senhora.
Cadê minha fala?
Aqui no sinal, a lâmpada da mesa. Aí a senhora pega onde estiver.
E aí, antes do discurso. Né?
Antes do discurso.
Com a palavra.
Sim.
Com a palavra, nesse momento, a presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça e do Conselho da Justiça Federal, Sua Excelência, senhora ministra Maria Tereza de Assis Moura.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Eu declaro aberta esta sessão solene do Superior Tribunal de Justiça, destinada a empossar o eminente ministro Herman Benjamin e o eminente ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão nos cargos, respectivamente, de presidente e vice-presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça e do Conselho da Justiça Federal para o biênio 2024 a 2026, de acordo com os artigos 10, inciso 2 e 17 do regimento interno desta Corte. Eu convido todas e todos para, neste momento, em posição de respeito, acompanharmos a execução do hino nacional pela Orquestra Soncietà, sob a regência do maestro Daniel Moraes e o coral Tutcuá Brasília.
Eu passo a palavra à presidente dessa corte, ministra Maria Tereza de Assis Moura, para sua manifestação.
Inicialmente, eu cumprimento os integrantes da mesa de honra, excelentíssimos senhores, presidente da República Federativa do Brasil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, o presidente do Supremo Tribunal Federal e do Conselho Nacional de Justiça, ministro Luiz Roberto Barroso, o presidente do Senado Federal, senador Rodrigo Pacheco, o presidente da Câmara dos Deputados, deputado federal Arthur Lira, procurador-geral da República, Dr. Paulo Gonet, o presidente do Conselho Federal da Ordem dos Advogados do Brasil, Dr. Beto Simonetti, demais autoridades, convidadas, convidados que acompanham presencial e virtualmente esta cerimônia. Senhoras e senhores, é com grande honra e profundo respeito que hoje nos reunimos para a posse dos novos presidente e vice-presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça. Neste momento, somam-se sentimentos de admiração e de absoluta confiança. A competência técnica e a percepção refinada dos novos dirigentes sobre as demandas da sociedade moderna têm contribuído decisivamente para a evolução e a aplicação da justiça em nosso país. Sua Excelência, o ministro Herman Benjamin, que assume a presidência do nosso tribunal, foi membro do Ministério Público de São Paulo, é doutor pela Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul e tem uma trajetória de destacada atuação nas áreas do direito ambiental e do direito do consumidor, com reconhecida experiência também no mundo acadêmico, nacional e internacional. Sua passagem pela primeira sessão do STJ, onde encerra uma atuação de grande destaque, é marcada pela clareza e precisão com que sempre abordou casos complexos, o que reflete não apenas sua vasta experiência e erudição, mas também a relevância de decisões que se tornaram marcos para a interpretação e aplicação do direito público no nosso país. Sua Excelência, o ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão, ao assumir a vice-presidência do tribunal, traz uma admirável bagagem que certamente concorrerá para uma gestão participativa e de sucesso. Formado em Direito e pós-graduado em Direito Comercial pela Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, foi promotor de justiça em São Paulo, juiz e desembargador do Tribunal de Justiça do Rio de Janeiro. No Superior Tribunal de Justiça, tem participação relevante na formação da jurisprudência, sobretudo em matérias de direito privado. Em momentos delicados do país, sua contribuição para o Tribunal Superior Eleitoral e a desafiadora gestão como Corregedor Nacional de Justiça demonstraram a sua notável capacidade de atuar com firmeza e assertividade. Ao assumirem a presidência e a vice-presidência para o próximo biênio, senhores ministros Herman Benjamin e Luiz Felipe Salomão, desejo-lhes uma gestão produtiva e exitosa. Este é um momento desafiador para o tribunal, que conta com mais de 5.000 pessoas, entre servidores, colaboradores, juízes e ministros, e com um volume de processos que atingiu 460.000 casos novos no ano de 2023, mantendo a tendência de alta este ano. No entanto, temos plena certeza, a ambos os nossos novos gestores, de que a nova administração estará bem equipada para enfrentar esses desafios e de que a chegada de novos líderes com currículo ilustres e experiências diversas trará uma perspectiva renovadora e eficaz, alinhada com as demandas atuais e futuras. Esta será uma oportunidade de fortalecer a justiça e de garantir que o Tribunal da Cidadania continue desempenhando o seu papel essencial com um comprometimento perene. Desejo a ambos, em nome do Tribunal, uma gestão profícua e inspiradora que avance na busca pela excelência e na promoção de uma justiça que atenda às expectativas e às necessidades das cidadãs e dos cidadãos brasileiros. Muito obrigada e muito, muito sucesso. Eu convido Sua Excelência, o senhor ministro Herman Benjamin, a prestar o compromisso regimental para o exercício do cargo de presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça e do Conselho da Justiça Federal, com muito orgulho e honra.
Justice Benjamin, you have the floor for the swearing-in statement.
Prometo bem desempenhar
Este cargo bem cumprir as duties of my office and obey and enforce the laws of the country.
Senhor diretor-geral, secretário da sessão,
And Section Secretary is going to read out the swearing-in statement.
Termo de posse do excelentíssimo
Swearing-in statement regarding His Excellency Justice Herman Benjamin. On August 22, 2024, at 17 hours at the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, at the plenary session room of the National High Court of Justice, members of the solemn session led by Her Excellency Maria Assis Moura,
cargo de presidente do Tribunal de Justiça
to swear in as Chief Justice of the Federal Court of Justice and of the Federal Council of Justice, His Excellency Justice Antonio Herman Benjamin, and his peers on April 23rd, 2024, for the 2024-2026 Biennium. His Excellency has stated his commitment to fully perform the duties of his office as well as to uphold and enforce the Constitution and the laws of the country.
primeiro diretor-geral, secretário
Swearing and protocol has been signed by the President of the session as well as by myself as Session Secretary and Director General of this session.
declaro
Justice Herman Benjamin, sworn in as Chief Justice of the National High Court of Brazil, and the Federal Council of Justice for the 2024 to 2026 biennium, and I hand the floor over to him.
Boa tarde a todas e a todos. Eu convido Sua
Salomão
ao exercício do cargo de vice-presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça e do Conselho de Justiça Federal.
Prometo bem desempenhar os deveres bem cumprir e fazer cumprir a Constituição e as leis do
Justice of the National High Court of Brazil, the Department of Justice, and to fully obey and enforce the Constitution and the laws of the country.
Procederemos à leitura do termo de posse.
There will be a swearing in. Statement.
Termo de posse do excelentíssimo senhor ministro.
Swearing is open to His Excellency Justice Luiz Felipe Salomão.
22 dias do mês de agosto do ano
22, 24, 17 hours at the
Federativo do Brasil. Sessões ordinárias do Superior Tribunal de Justiça.
the session room of the National High Court of Justice, the members of the court of the silent session,
Ministro Herman Benjamin,
Excellency Justice Herman Benjamin,
vice-presidente do Superior Tribunal de Justiça,
to swear in
no cargo de corregedor,
Justice Felipe Salomão
excelentíssimo senhor ministro
as the Chief of Justice of the National High Court of Justice and of the Federal Council of Justice, elected by his peers on the 23rd, 2024, 2026 Biennium. His Excellency Salomão advised his honor commitment to fully
cumprir a Constituição e as leis
Chevrolet Global and the
presente
Constitution Constitution and
nesta sessão,
the
pela
Constitution
empossada
and the section that to the Deputy the Salomão and the myself as Secretary General succession.
Declaro empossado Sua Excelência, o senhor ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão, da Justiça Federal, Dando sequência a essa cerimônia, eu passo a palavra à Sua Excelência,
Andrighi.
da Corte.
Boa tarde a todos. Peço licença, senhor presidente,
If I may,
presidência para subscrever
Mr.
os cumprimentos
Mr. Chief Justice, I would like
que a
to
mesa nominou das altas autoridades que aqui comparecem.
names of
Dignas autoridades,
my Excellency of the session.
luzes especiais iluminam esse
Distinguished
plenário
guests,
para saudar
special guests
os novos dirigentes da corte.
here today, and there's a very full the members of this board. We just witnessed the swearing-in ceremony of our 21st Chief Justice Benjamin and Chief Justice Salomão. Notwithstanding from this session and the ceremony is repeated every 2 years, the fact remains that the region is always highly regarded, given our expectations to continually the hopes and the new projects espoused by the sword. It was part and parcel of the tradition in swearing-in ceremonies in the high-ranking positions of Chief Justice and Chief Justice to speak and
Contudo, eu peço licença, presidente, para romper e mais dizer, acerca da extraordinária adequação dos dois magistrados para as complexas e relevantes responsabilidades que ora o presidente, ministro Herman Benjamin, para o Capiné do Rocha, renomado jurista, magistrado, ambientalista e professor.
Son of distinguished Dr. Benjamin Paulo and also Sam Fernandes Maia, Vasconcelos.
Formou-se eleito pela Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, tornou-se mestre em Direito pela Universidade de Illinois e doutor pela Universidade do Rio Grande do Sul. Iniciou sua carreira como conselheiro público do Estado de São Paulo,
where he served for 24 years. He was one of the member of the Justice in the National High Court in 2002.
Professor visitante das importantes
Professor and also distinguished professor in the universities of Texas and Illinois.
Herman Benjamin,
Justice Benjamin is something
que além da jurisdição ele exerce com denodo e muita dedicação, está sempre cumprindo atividades paralelas como a defesa do Meio Oriente, dos povos indígenas, advocacy and also é um extraordinário doutrinador com incontáveis obras jurídicas. Os autores da Ordem de Defesa do Consumidor, intenso e persistente na defesa do meio ambiente, e também ativo colaborador e autoritativa da legislação ambientalista do país.
Time and energy to help the environment.
E eu peço para mencionar uma palestra marcante proferida por Sua Excelência, a que fez no Vaticano, falando para o Papa, acerca da encíclica Laudato Si. E ali ele discorreu sobre a ecologização social
was the equalization of social justice and the blood right of planetary justices. The conclusion is nothing. His Excellency stated on the occasion to protect the ecological foundations of life is in the mission. It's incumbent upon justices. It was only we should be able to hear the cry of the earth as well as the cry of the peoples at large. Yes. It will be one and judges and yes, to effectively materialize social.
O ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão,
Justice Salomão was born with the Syrian, the son of Salomão.
Formado e pós-graduado pela Universidade Federal do Rio de Janeiro, construiu a carreira principalmente no Estado, atuou como promotor de justiça em São Paulo, juiz de desembargador
and associate justice in Janeiro Court of Justice.
Foi nomeado ministro superior tribunal de justiça.
National High Court of Justice of Israel. He also served as coordinating secretary and research and research in judicial branch of office of Tribunal Branco Inauguration. He was also very
Ministro Luiz Felipe Salomão é o
Justice
ministro
Salomão,
líder da Associação dos Magistrados do Rio de Janeiro,
Association of Supremos
sempre
Branco,
atento com a adequada formação dos magistrados e principalmente com a aperfeiçoamento da atividade judicial, contribuiu de forma significativa, oferecendo a sua experiência de magistrado para a construção, revisão e modernização das leis de mediação, lei de recuperação judicial e a lei de o coroamento da sua dedicação veio a nomeação pelo Legislativo para coordenar o trabalho de estudos preparando a brasileira, além de toda a experiência que acumulou durante a agrega da Corregedoria Nacional de Justiça, onde, diante das possíveis tecnologias do Poder Judiciário, trabalhou com coragem e bravura, deixando uma marca de progresso naquele órgão. Como puderam perceber, de mais uma administração muito profícua. Vossas Excelências, ministro Herman e ministro Salomão, recebem os dignificantes cargos de presidente e vice-presidente
positions of Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice with the glamour and all of the honor that surrounds the positions. More than that, you also receive the responsibility of strengthening the national court of justice, a citizenship-oriented court, with an ensuring citizens will be able to enjoy the fruits of justice. Your Excellencies, on this occasion, receive in your hands the task of managing 364,443
O tribunal recebeu neste ano de
below you.
2024,
In 2024, this court,
de 1º de janeiro
on January
a
the 1st, or
31 de
between
julho,
January the 1st all the way up
total
to
de
July 31st, this court has received a total of 233,701 new
assim
cases,
distribuídos.
which have been distributed
Primeira
as
sessão,
follows. First section,
73.663.
73,663
Segunda
cases.
sessão, 108.303
Grand Chamber number
processos.
2,
E terceira sessão,
101,300 cases. Grand Chamber number
101.660
3,
processos.
60
Diante desses
plus
números,
thousand
fica
cases. These
evidenciado
numbers
de que
show the
estamos
order of
diante de um
magnitude and very
verdadeiro
clearly evince that we
oceano de
find ourselves before
recursos
a
que exigem de
real
todos
ocean
um
of
trabalho
appeals,
hercúleo.
which certainly require a
Já se
Herculean
faz
effort from everyone in
tardia
this court.
a adoção de um mecanismo
It
que
is
conduza esses números a um
overdue for us to
patamar
adopt a
razoável,
mechanism that will bring these numbers down to a
sem,
reasonable
contudo,
threshold, without
prejudicar o
nevertheless
acesso à
proving
justiça
detrimental to
e, ao
access
mesmo
to
tempo,
justice, while
cumpra o direito de
ensuring
todo
that
cidadão
all citizens
à
are able
duração
to
razoável do processo.
enjoy a reasonable
Cremos firmemente que esses dois
proceedings.
objetivos
We firmly believe that
só
these two
poderão ser
objectives
alcançados
will only be achieved
se a Corte,
if
juntamente
this court,
e de comum acordo
working together
com a
and
Ordem dos Advogados do Brasil, cujos advogados também são responsáveis pela administração da justiça, se unirem, juntarem forças com ideias,
o resultado efetivo e eficiente assombroso e desumano acervo de recursos que aportam no tribunal. Vossas Excelências, ministro Herman e ministro Salomão, também recebem a responsabilidade de administrar certos hoje o Superior Tribunal de Justiça, um presidente alinhado com a sustentabilidade e adequado à
pós-modernidade.
So it's going to be
O ministro Herman é um ser humano diferenciado.
So just to tell you, the expression of human being is different from the usual human being.
Pragmáticas e operosas. Seremos conduzidos por um homem que pode ser considerado comparado a uma frondosa figueira com uma única raiz, ramos espalhados, sempre crescendo, mas sempre permanecendo a mesma árvore, da mesma raiz, porque é paciente, sua raiz é impregnada de pura dedicação à justiça. O exemplo e postura alça todos nós para a unidade de propósito, uma prestação
É reconhecido como um dos maiores e mais respeitados estudiosos do direito ambiental no mundo, trazendo consigo toda a qualificação necessária para cuidar dos 4 grandes temas que preocupam a humanidade: a água, a energia, a alimentação e o meio ambiente. E, com certeza, manterá a corte alinhada no caminho da sustentabilidade. O tempo que vivemos conduz a nossa lembrança à era Kali-Yuga, a qual é impulsionada pelo egocentrismo, com ênfase no aspecto material, sobrepujando a espiritualidade e deixando de lado valores significativos do ser humano. Segundo os Puranas, são tempos que requerem prudência e fé. Nesse entretempo, vivemos os eflúvios de um movimento
philosophical movement or school of thought that finds ways and means to go beyond preparing the transition to the so-called transhumanism. It's distinctive hallmarks such as volatility. These are the emergencies and the urgencies, the pressing needs that are imposed upon us by the technology world, a world where machines will ensure that people or from person to person. It is true that leading a higher court such as this in postmodern times is hugely different vis-a-vis everything that has happened in human history up to now. However, given the gigantic technological leap experienced by humankind in recent times, the fact is that leading a high court in postmodern times requires from the Chief Justice an equally postmodern stance, and the administration of the court as of now will necessarily espouse a differentiated approach, because in today's world it is not enough to just solve conflicts. We must do more. We must solve conflicts in such a way as to ensure that we are doing so in alignment with the legal concepts and constructs, but above all in line with the requirements of today's world, changing, constantly evolving times. Your Excellencies, Justice Herman and Salomão, you will be taking office as leaders of the National High Court of Brazil at a very significant point in time for the very existence of this court. Considering the virtualization trend for cases examined by the court, and also the ongoing expansion of the deployment of artificial intelligence in jurisdictional services. The relentless strength and decisive drive of technology has found its way to courts, and it has come to courts even in the way the court rules cases. The new trial architecture introduced and brought about by the digital age has produced and will still produce in the future an increasing convergence of collegiate sessions, which will probably do away with the very useful and fruitful debates between lawyers and judges. And we do expect that these new trends will ultimately result in enhanced rulings. Many arguments or theories or the prospects for new scholarly theories, which in the past were strongly voiced in person among the parties to a trial, will as of now become just written statement, very clearly losing the strength of the intonation and the overall tone of the rapporteurs, which are very often much more able to reflect the pain contained in the dockets or the cases, much more than just the attention that is required thereby. The eye-to-eye approach will be, as of now, replaced by more hours of eyes focusing on the grayish screen of computers in the loneliness of our offices as we move towards virtual rulings. Justice Herman, these are just some of the challenges and the concerns that the virtual rulings will certainly impose upon us, judges and members of the court. And it is for no other reason that the high-profile players of the advancement of new technology in the world have already identified these evil effects of technology on people. And that is why they're seeking out professionals in the fields of human sciences that are capable of helping us strike a balance between the use of technology and the actual attention to human persons. In other words, we must ensure a properly balanced and duly humanized use of the technology available to us. The step that is being taken now by more broadly adopting virtual trials and rulings, and also the expansion in the adoption of artificial intelligence, is a very substantial step forward. However, it may never ever mean that we will be breaking or doing away the commitment that we all have. We should never forget that the bites of electronic cases ultimately reflect the needs and concerns of disabled persons, men, women, children, the elderly, all human persons who eagerly and anxiously await a response to be given by the judiciary so that they can pursue and lead their lives. Very often they even and ultimately do depend on the judiciary to close relevant cycles of their lives. I am quite certain, Justice Herman, that you, Your Excellency, with your humanistic intelligence that is so peculiar to you, I'm sure that you will be able to set the essential ethical limits, and thus help ensure a balanced transition while aligning these important tools to their legitimate role, which is essentially about helping in conducting research, speeding up and boosting productivity levels. The citizenship-oriented court, the National Court of Justice, through its rulings, serves as an example and is as such a leitmotif to all judges throughout Brazil. They also yield an effect on the everyday life of citizens, and that is why we must be more focused on everything we do, given the multivariated facts out there, and which require a multiple approach by judges, because we do not establish only precedents. More importantly, we establish social conducts and behaviors. And it is precisely due to this relevant function and duty that the ethical behavior and character of judges is absolutely imperative. It is required that every trial and ruling be conducted in such a way that it will ensure that any potential interference will be purged, no matter how turbulent times may be, trials and rulings must always be anchored on solid and sound legal foundations. Moral uprightness and the ethics of judges is the source of certainty for all of us, whether defendants or attorneys and lawyers, especially at a point in time where a new world order, a new global order is just around the corner, but one which may not be imposed by means of laws alone. Basic values and principles must be established to ensure the survival of the world. And the ethical principles here include humanitarian treatment, intellectual honesty and truth, tolerance, justice, and our collective commitment towards respect, equality, the equality of all of us before the law. Chief Justice Herman Benjamin, you, Your Excellency, will certainly lead this court based on your vast experience, and you will be able to rely on the dedication and substantial experience of Deputy Chief Justice Salomão, who will certainly add a sense of practicality and prudence. These are attributes and qualities that have been the hallmark of his fruitful trajectory and career in the judiciary. You will also certainly rely on the commitment of all other judges and servants of this court, so as to ensure that together we will uphold the sense and as such validate the title of this court, also codenamed the Citizenship Court. You will have the responsibility, and we will have the responsibility together to serve as a guide to all other related institutions, no matter how fast the pace of changes may be, changes that are brought about by the advent of the digital age. The fact is that there will always be time to appreciate the ethical principles and the right and the duty of care and a loving sense or a sense of affection in everything we do in this court. This is also an occasion for us to voice our thanks. As we come to the end of the biennium of Chief Justice Maria Teresa and Deputy Chief Justice Og, I must say that Your Excellencies have delivered to this court and to Brazilian society an exemplary role and legacy. Your Excellency Maria Teresa, with your loving care, and also Deputy Justice Og, with your serenity and poetical gift, you have provided us all in this court an environment of peace and harmony, where we have always been able to work and live together with a sense of harmony. You have taken part and attended countless sessions, especially the celebration of the 35th anniversary of this court. Distinguished Brazilian and foreign guests have been received for all of our celebrations, and these are certainly memorable occasions for all of us, given the significant messages you have always shared with us. You have also highlighted the interconnection between what we were in the past, what we are today, and what we intend to be in the future as a court, the National Court of Justice of Brazil. Esteemed Justice Maria Teresa, with your joy and special intelligence and congeniality, you have succeeded in coming to the National Court of Justice in a high-profile position, and also have exercised international leadership, especially in Iberia and America, thereby engaging in an exchange of invaluable experience, which have always resulted in enhanced services by this court. Your term in office will be marked as a watershed in the history of this court. Only a very hardworking and bold Chief Justice like you, Madam, could possibly have espoused the challenge of changing our huge database, the huge database held at the National Court of Justice from DB2 to Oracle. Nevertheless, and despite all of the risks and all of the headaches that could have happened, the fact is that Your Excellency Maria Teresa, you were bold enough to go ahead and do so with a sense of certainty. This courage and the determination you have always shown has given this court substantial technological advancement and breakthroughs while ensuring that our work will certainly benefit from these reforms. Esteemed Justices Teresa and Og, kindly receive from the members of this court as well as from all of the civil servants who work at this court, kindly receive our huge thank you for your efforts, for the beautiful work you have conducted in the past 2 years, marked by technological progress, a very productive period in time, and especially a period marked by substantial peace among us all. Thank you very much.
Eu agradeço, honrado. I am very honored to thank my dear friend and colleague, Justice Nancy Andrighi, for her words. And I now call on His Excellency, the Attorney General of Brazil, Paulo Gonet, to speak in the name of the Brazilian public prosecutors. Mr. Herman Benjamin, the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, Luiz Inácio da Sul, Your Excellency, the President of the Supreme Court, Luiz Roberto Barroso, Your Excellency, President of the National Congress, Rodrigo Pacheco, Your Excellency, Speaker of the House, Arthur Lira, and the National President of the Bar Association, Beto Simonetti. In the name of Your Excellencies, I greet all the authorities who are here, ladies and gentlemen. The four eminent justices who are leaving and taking over the top positions of the National High Court share many qualities. They are all part of they have the great respect of the public sector, of the legal sector, for their talents and their work in defining the contours of law and giving the good direction to all the court system and to citizenry. Our Justice Assis Moura has given us a well-coordinated court for federal law in dealing with issues of gender, notable performance, and very encouraging for the recognition of the capacity of leadership and the intellectual excellency of women in the most refined spaces of public life. Your activity in these 2 years has made even greater the fame of this court. Professor, Dr. and Minister Maria Teresa Assis Moura, coming after the professor, after her comes the eminent Justice Herman Benjamin, who has a solid reputation for great culture in law. There is no one concerned with the destinies of our country who are not aware of his outstanding expertise in issues of environment, indigenous rights, and consumer rights. Is an indoctrinator in pushing for solutions for consumer concerns of our days. Justice Herman Benjamin has not only led history as a defender of the Consumer Defense Code, and he has been a leader in that field with great civility and a paradigmatic reality for everyone. And his no less impressive involvement in the environmental affairs and in promoting dignified treatment for indigenous peoples, we can be very proud of the progress made in those crucial sectors of national life. And it is for that reason that personalities, not only in the field of law, but in national and international culture, like the world photographer Sebastião Salgado, have seen in Justice Herman Benjamin a rare person of human and ethical qualities that are totally uncommon. Juridical wisdom, total dedication to the best causes, engaged in missions. These are attributes that describe him and have added to a wonderful period that we expect from him as the Chief Justice, as a man of the bell arts and the fine arts, and a notable jurist, and he is leaving the vice presidency of the ministry, and coming after Og Fernandes as the deputy, with the just perspectives, which for 2 years we have been waiting for him to come. And we're also happy in this ceremony to see that you will also be presiding the new president of the National Council of Justice. Yes, the new president, Mr. Herman Benjamin, in this court will be taking over the role where the deputy justice has also had an important role in the prosecutor's office. Luis Felipe Salomão has been a great professor and admirable history that is virtuous and triumphant as a courageous jurist, a notable leader of the courts. All these qualities of Minister Luis Felipe Salomão and the greatness of Herman Benjamin inspire renewed optimism for the excellency of the leadership in the National High Court of Justice. Congratulations, Mr. Justice, Mr. Chief Justice, and Mr. Deputy Chief Justice. Thank you very much. And we're getting to the end, and I would call on Dr. Beto Simonetti, the president of our Federal Bar Association of Lawyers in Brazil, who will now speak in the name of the lawyers of our country, both public and private lawyers. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Antonio Herman Benjamin, I wish you great success, and through you I greet all the justices of this court, the President of the Republic of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, and through him, all the governors and other federal ministers and members of the Brazilian government. I greet the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Barroso, and other members of the Supreme Court, and also the council members of the CNJ, the President of the National Electoral Court, the President of the National Congress, Senator Pacheco, through whom I greet all the other senators, the Speaker of the House, Arthur Lira, with whom I greet all the members of Congress, and the Dr. Paulo Gonet, our Attorney General, through whom I greet all others, federal lawyers and attorneys, and respectively the President Silva Jr., Luciano Bandeira. I compliment the national press. And ladies and gentlemen here in this room, it is an honor for Brazilian lawyers and for me to bring greetings and compliments to the National High Court of Brazil, where this is a significant transition for the judicial powers. The justices Benjamin and Salomão, who are taking over today in this High Court of Justice and are very able to carry out our Constitution in the best traditions of this House. I respectfully greet the leadership who is being succeeded now through Maria Teresa Assis Moura, and also Justice Og Fernanda, who is concluding his mandate as Deputy Chief Justice. And I thank you for your services to national law. Ladies and gentlemen, the court is now in the hands of Justices Benjamin and Salomão, and you will be working to build consensus, and we will continue to work for the prerogatives of lawyers, have the right to oral defense be sustained in all cases. We defend the oral tradition, but in this to carry out my role as head of the Bar Association. We recognize much progress made, but we must speak out because of certain problems. The justices must know that the Bar Association and the lawyers will continue to work for mutual respect and convergence with the National High Court, especially in troubled times. I have a special greeting to Justice Luis Felipe Salomão for his action in the through the court system, fighting abuse of authority and those who commit crimes against lawyers. The lawyers are convinced that as Deputy Chief Justice, you will not only collaborate with Justice Herman, but also continue to defend justice the way you have always have. I also want to greet Justice Mauro Campo, from my home state, the state of Amazonas, and who will soon become the national comptroller of justice. And the Justice Mauro will be very efficient at this as well, I am sure. You know all the problems urgent problems of the court system, and we have trust in you that the lawyers will continue to be with you in this court. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bar Association of Brazil and the STJ have fundamental commitments to defending the guarantees of constitutional rights. Together, we can overcome challenges and build a system of justice that is suitable for the Brazilian people. That is why in this ceremony, I once again give my recognition to the STJ's historic decision in 2022 to respect the civil process calculations of lawyer fees. That was a framework, a milestone for us. And even so, the Bar Association has identified certain focuses of biases and prejudice against the lawyers. There has been progress, but the Bar Association will continue to insist for that decision to actually be enforced for the dignity of lawyers and the correct payment for the services. Based on the precedents of the special court of the National High Court. And I also raise our concerns with oral defense opportunities, which are very important to defend the rights of those that we represent. We will continue to insist on defending the prerogatives of lawyers through institutional means and rejecting the disrespect and aggressions against the courts. The attacks on lawyers are against physical and legal persons who through them go to the courts. And recalling Rui Barbosa's speech in August 1907, he spoke in an inspiring and in current fashion to say that we must think above all about the position of judges in this court, to be equals amongst the powers of the country. But they are human beings. They suffer the influence of national origins. They cannot forget their national nature. So, and I can affirm that Your Excellencies, justices, and like the colleagues of Rui Barbosa, will not forget our country. In the common country of all Brazilian citizens, the Bar Association is open for more dialogue to find solutions in the causes of our society and justice. Altogether, the lawyers and the courts. Thank you very much. I'm very thankful to the words of the speaker. And now we'll hear from Beto Simonetti from the Bar Association. And also, I thank them both for their words. I am very thankful for the presence of the members of this head table, and especially the President of Brazil, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva. Mr. President, in your name, allow me to greet everyone, the ladies and gentlemen who are members of the federal executive and state and municipal executive bodies who have been at this ceremony, giving us prestige. Authorities from all of Brazil, from all Brazilian states who are here today being represented. The President of the National High Court, Mr. Luis Roberto Barroso, through whom I greet the justices of the Supreme Court today and ever. And a special reference here, they're all friends, particularly Justice Carmen Lucia, the President of the Federal Senate, Rodrigo Pacheco, through whom I greet all the senators who are present, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, through the leader, and through whom I greet all the members of the Federal House of Representatives and state assemblies and city councils. In the Attorney General, Paulo Gonet, through whom I greet all the prosecutors in Brazil, an institution that I was part of for 24 years, and the President of the Brazilian Bar Association, Beto Simonetti, through him I give my greetings to the lawyers, the men and women of Brazil. The Vice President of Brazil, Geraldo Alckmin. Here it says, my friend also, Lou Alckmin, his wife, and the justices of the National High Court, my colleagues forever, and Justice Luis Felipe Salomão, who has just become the Deputy Justice, Chief Justice of this court, and I will say some more words about him, and my dear Justice Maria Teresa and also August Fernandes, the presidents, justices, and members of Brazilian and foreign courts, ambassadors and diplomats who are at this ceremony and who are dignifying our country here and abroad, the justices of courts, higher courts and labor courts, as well as the National Accounting Court, and the members of the National Council of Justice and the National Council of the Public Prosecutors, presidents and appeals courts presidents of the 6 federal courts of appeal who are present at this ceremony. And my special greetings, very special, to Chief Raoni, the head of the Kayapó ethnic people, who is well known for his struggle in favor of the original peoples and also for the forest itself and the waters. I greet the members of the public defenders institutions who are here at this ceremony, the presidents and leaders of institutes and class associations, members of the Brazilian court system, of the federal, state, and just and specialized courts, civil authorities, military and church authorities. Please feel equally greeted. The professors who are at this solemn session, and also members of the press, journalists, and professionals, and special greetings now for the public servants, collaborators of this court and of the the Federal Council of Justice, and especially for the longest standing public servant in activity at this court, Nilceia Berens. She's sitting over here. Our ladies and gentlemen, guests who are with us virtually and present at this ceremony, we, the judges and the justices and the civil servants at this court are very pleased. Actually, there are many presidents sitting here with the presence of everyone who is here and who are watching us virtually. In the name of this court, I thank the two leaders who are leaving as Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice and who have already been celebrated here. Justice Maria Teresa Assis Moura, professor of the University of São Paulo, has administered the STJ just the way she is as a person, with hard work, uprightness of character, and the most important, lightheartedness. It will not be easy to take her place. And that's no platitude. She will now join the court's first grand chamber, which specializes in public law. The res publica, or public interest, could not be in better hands. And now, our Justice Og Fernandes, the only one among us who has a double degree in law and journalism, will join the third grand chamber of this court, whose jurisdiction is criminal law, which is the legal discipline he has mastered. I hope that he will now have some time left over for literature and arts, one of his passions. I would also like to express our affectionate gratitude to Tobias and to Roberta for accepting undeniable sacrifices in their family lives. More than loving spouses, both of them have always clearly supported the work of Maria Teresa and Og Fernandes. Ever since I graduated from law, I have held only two jobs. Through a national competitive exam, I worked from 1982 to 2006 as a member of the Office of the Attorney General of the state of São Paulo, the largest in Brazil. It was a happy and fulfilling experience. Then, by appointment of President Lula da Silva, since 2006, I have been a justice of the National High Court of Brazil, here. And actually, this has now been 18 years later, and I am also happy and fulfilled here. I therefore feel privileged to have served the public interest for 42 years. Hence my gratitude to the Brazilian people for giving me a hick from Catolé do Rocha in the semi-arid of northeast Brazil, the opportunity to dedicate almost 2/3 of my life to protecting the values most dear to contemporary society. 4 decades later, perhaps it's time for me to ask, to wonder, what have I observed in Brazil? Actually, President Barroso, President Brazil, we might say in the plural, in the first person plural, what have we all observed in the field of law? Where are we today? Despite serious difficulties still before us, and there are so many, I feel a kind of realistic optimism. I am optimistic because we must not and cannot succumb to the rhetoric of pessimism, fatalism, and mostly of hatred. I am realistic because we do not ignore, nor could we, the challenges we face as a nation and as judges. There are several reasons for my, and actually our, realistic optimism. Consider the symbolism of a poor migrant boy fleeing from the arid Northeast with his illiterate mother and a large family. After selling tapioca, peanuts, and oranges in the frightening big city, he rises from the factory floor to become president of the Republic. I believe that we can only begin to evaluate what we are and have today if we recall what we were not and what we did not have 4 decades ago. I, Justice Luis Felipe Salomão, along with Justice Benedito Gonçalves and Maria Laura, who is with us and sitting out here, we had our first contact with law at the Federal University of Rio in an anti-law atmosphere. Actually, the director of that university is here with us today. In 1976, at the age of 18, when I entered that public school, for someone that could pay for a university in the Brazilian, and the people of Brazil paid for my university education, we found an academy devastated by authoritarianism. People were afraid to talk about rights. Although we were at a law school, and Justice Barroso was at the Rio de Janeiro State University, as many of my colleagues were, although we were at a law school, paradoxically, we were governed by a system that contradicted even the minimal foundations of democracy and freedom. It's not that long ago, actually. We must remember, with the return of democracy, shortly before, and dozens of modern laws were passed shortly before and especially after the enactment of our Social Welfare Constitution 1988, which have entirely changed and continue to change the country's legal framework, particularly for those most in need. This is why we can be optimistic. These new laws contain a wide range of individual, which is already something, but also social and even transgenerational rights. But not just rights, because at the same time, explicit duties have been enshrined regarding solidarity and civilized coexistence to be upheld by the state and by each of its citizens, especially by us, judges. It was in the wake of such democratization and great hopes that the 1988 Constitution established this National High Court of Justice to ensure a uniform interpretation of all of our federal legislation, which is vast. We and the 33 justices must interpret a single civil code for Brazil, a single civil procedure code, a single criminal code, a single criminal procedure court, and all these many different codes in a single consumer defense code, a single land reform law, to name but a few of the hundreds of federal laws that govern the lives of Brazilians. And we have the heads of parliament here with us to talk about those laws. We are thus a fairly new court, but our mission is to judge old, even centuries-old problems, now addressed by innovative laws. Hence, the avalanche of cases in the STJ, already mentioned by Justices Maria Teresa and Nancy Andrighi, all the conflicts of human existence and the community of planetary life and come before us in appeals that reach us from 27 state Supreme Courts and 6 federal courts of appeal, institutions to which I pay tribute on this day for the admirable service of their members. At the STJ, we judge conflicts of all kinds and sizes. As I said, conflicts involving individuals, social, racial, gender, and sexual orientation issues, the abuse of property rights and freedom of contract, despotisms that cause exploitation of workers, disrespect for consumers, the elderly, and people with disabilities, not to mention the destruction of the cultural and environmental heritage of our society, native peoples, and future generations, privatization, dilapidation, and misappropriation of public assets, traditional family conflicts, and others arising from new family configurations, conflicts involving businesses, competition, taxes, and emerging technologies, violent and organized crime on the one hand, and on the other, disrespect for the dignity of inmates. I could stop there, but the list actually goes on. The Brazilian judiciary, sometimes at a slower pace than desired, and with both progress and setbacks, has been able to show the population that rights and responsibilities laid down in the law are not utopian or empty words. Laws, we know, are just the starting point. Their effectiveness, which is the subject of a book written by my friend Luis Alberto Barroso, their effectiveness of laws depends on the independence and integrity of the judiciary. That is why we, as judges, cannot agree that the law should only apply when used to obtain or strengthen privilege. Law is to feed people. While it is true that everyone is equal under the law, those who need it most are the vulnerable, the poor, the excluded, the oppressed, in a society that should be a society of equals. And let us be frank. And I'm getting close to my conclusion. The rule of law, as an inclusive vision for everyone, will only be universal when hunger and malnutrition are eliminated. The great promises of this legal, and it's embarrassing to talk about hunger and misery and exploitation and malnutrition, but the big promises of this legal, political, and ethical project will fade away into the background if the existence of human beings is reduced day after day, minute by minute, to looking for a meal. There is no robust, full, and inclusive rule of law in poverty. There is no true rule of law when a poor child dreams in vain of a rosy apple on display at a street market. These paramount concerns and anxieties must not be distant from judges or outside the courts. The eco-social rule of law, the territory par excellence of the STJ, which is also called the Court of Citizenship, is above all a roadmap for social, ethnic, and environmental inclusion, for breaking down age-old traditions of inequality with concentration of income, land, and well-being. All of them concentrated. That's sad. But we must say openly that happiness cannot be the monopoly of a few. I, therefore, shall end on three brief notes. The first goes to our more than 15,000 federal and state magistrates in our local, individual, and collegiate appellate courts. I learn something every day from brilliant judicial rulings that reach me. And me and all my colleagues every day. The colleagues in the STJ and in the Supreme Court as well, all of us. And often these come from young judges who have recently entered the career. After one of the toughest and most difficult exams in the country, some would call it a cruel experience. We never overcome the cruelty of these exams for joining the court system. You have to do therapy for the rest of your life. And Brazil owes a lot to their efforts, these judges, their public spirit and courage. We are very proud. We are of these Brazilian judges. We are so proud of you. But I do express a hint of concern as well, and I wanted to say this publicly. On the one hand, we're concerned about the small number of women, Afro-Brazilians, and minorities in the highest levels of the Brazilian judiciary, beginning with this very STJ. On the other hand, I am disquieted by a certain recent trend, still small, but highly damaging to the public interest, which is leading judges, some with more than 2 decades of experience, to resign and seek other professions. I come from a time, and many of us here, I won't say who, we come from a time when those who competed to become judges never left their careers, except by retirement or death. So, I intend during my term, and together with the National Council of Justice and my friend Luiz Alberto Barroso and my colleagues in all Brazilian courts, to tackle this very troubling phenomenon. We want and need not only to recruit, we want and need not only to recruit and train the best judges, but also to keep them inside our institutions. That's for the good of Brazil. The second point, the second final note is addressed to the nearly 5,000 civil servants of the National High Court, including interns. They are not only numerous, but extremely well qualified and efficient. Without these civil servants from all over Brazil, the STJ here would only be a majestic building with 33 justices and nothing more. On behalf of the court, therefore, our greatest thanks. And finally, I am fortunate to have as a Deputy Chief Justice a man who knows the judiciary and law in depth, a career judge from the marvelous city of Rio de Janeiro, which in Brazil is second only to Catolé do Rocha, my hometown, in terms of beauty. Justice Salomão I know there is debate on that beauty, but thank you for your applause. And Justice Salomão brings a rich professional and collective experience to this administration. The suggestions and contributions he brings me do not come out of the blue, but are the fruit of a long and successful career as a judge. And in conclusion, I would just like to say, let's get to work. Thank you.
Eu agora declaro encerrada.
I declare this session adjourned, and I would like to ask you all to wait for the members of the head table to leave and the justices to be able to leave before you leave. Reaffirming what Justice Herman has said, we please ask you all to stay in your seats until the exit of all the authorities of the head table and the justices and authorities. I remind each and every one of you that the justices will receive compliments in the reception room, and people outside will guide you into that area.